With a Fox News alert breaking just tonight, documents just obtained by Judicial Watch show, guess what? The pit bull of Robert Mueller, Andrew Weissmann, he was topped by Mueller to lead the entire hiring effort for the special counsel's witch hunt. That's right, the Andrew Weissmann of all people. Now we know why Mueller's team was filled with, far-left Clinton allies, zero Republican donors. After all, the same Andrew Weissmann, he was attending Hillary Clinton's election night party. That never happened. But the same partisan hack who donated thousands of dollars to Democrats, the same guy, according to Sidney Powell's book, License to Lie, known for withholding exculpatory evidence. Tens of thousands of jobs were lost at Anderson Accounting because of his wrongful prosecution in a case. Remember, that case was overturned 9-0. Why did Mueller hire this guy in the U.S. Supreme Court? Don't forget, he's the guy that put 4 Merrill executives in jail for a year. That case was overturned by the Fifth Circuit. 1 year of 4 people's lives ruined. Yet Bob Mueller appointed him to be the most powerful person in this entire witch hunt investigation, which at the end of the day, frankly, in retrospect, gives so much more weight to the fact that they found nothing. Now, make no mistake, Mueller's hyper-partisan team of investigators, they were hell-bent on taking down a duly elected president of the United States. They were no different than many other high-ranking, unelected government bureaucrats in the deep state. And moments ago, we can break tonight, Judicial Watch obtained several newly uncovered documents surrounding DOJ official Bruce Ohr and State Department official Kathleen Kavalec. Now, keep in mind, Kavalec and Ohr met separately with Christopher Steele, and both allegedly issued a warning about the credibility of Steele to the FBI, to the DOJ, prior to that first FISA warrant application against Carter Page to spy on the Trump campaign. And still after the election, documents now show that Ohr and Kavalec, they were still obsessed with using the dossier. They knew it was phony to take the president down. On November 21st, 2016, Kavalec emailing Ohr a link to a Mother Jones left-wing magazine article based on the phony Hillary bought and paid for Russian dossier. Ohr emailed back, quote, "I really hope we can get something going here. We'll take another look at this." In the subsequent conspiratorial email to Ohr, Kavalec even referenced her meeting notes with Christopher Steele. This was just 10 days before the first FISA application is put in. He's political. It's not vetted. Nobody verified. Now, from the DOJ to the State Department to the FBI, the highest-ranking officials, not rank and file, in all areas of Obama's government were totally obsessed with Christopher Steele and his Clinton paid-for Russian propaganda. So obsessed that they used Clinton's political hitman. Yep, there, he's back. Sid Vicious Blumenthal to corroborate the dossier in their FISA request. The biggest Clinton partisan hack to corroborate a Clinton op research to spy on a member of the Trump campaign. Watch this.
I have seen each factual assertion listed in that dossier, and then I've seen the FBI's justification. And when you're citing newspaper articles as corroboration for a factual assertion that you have made, you don't need an FBI agent to go do a Google search. And when the name Sidney Blumenthal is included as part of your corroboration, and you're the world's leading law enforcement agency, you have a problem. And you can blame it on the FISA court if you want to, but I hope Brennan is smart enough to know judges don't investigate. They have to rely on the honest word of the people presenting it to them. And if that honest word is missing, then the judge is going to make the wrong decision.
And remember, we told you the top of the FISA application says verified. It's unverifiable. Now, former Congressman Gowdy has seen the FBI's FISA request against Carter Page. He knows that Sid Vicious Blumenthal and circular reporting, remember, Michael Isikoff, same sourcing. They acted as though it was separate sourcing. They were both used to bolster the unverified garbage that Comey swore was true to the best of his knowledge and verified. Now with the investigations from Horowitz and now Mr. Durham as well are underway. Rush Limbaugh rightly pointing out the deep state is now in a panic mode for good reason. Take a look.
The next thing to keep a sharp eye out for, folks, and that is people fleeing the country. If you see James Comey in Argentina, or if you see James Clapper somewhere where they can't be extradited, then you will know that we are getting close. When these people start leaving, I'm half joking. It hasn't started yet, but man, are they nervous, because the Attorney General has appointed a prosecutor to look into the investigation.
All right, now that's funny. I wish I thought of that. When you see them in Venezuela. All right. It's now every man, every woman for themselves. And by the way, the circular firing squad I told you about last night is forming, and that includes the paragon of virtue himself, Mr. James Comey. He's blaming former CIA Director John Brennan for pushing the dossier as, quote, Crown material. But as Fox News is reporting, that Brennan and Clapper, they're actually blaming Comey, claiming that the pair always opposed the fired FBI director's use of the dirty dossier. At this point, the only thing that Comey, Clapper, and Brennan seem to agree on are the semantics surrounding the term spying, which, by the way, did occur in spite of what they're saying against the Trump campaign. And it happened not once, not twice, but multiple times, over and over again. But according to Comrade Brennan, yes, Comrade Brennan, it didn't really happen. The truth is not the truth. We're living in this, Alice in Wonderland of John Brennan. Take a look.
Does CIA spy? Yes. Do we spy against our foreign adversaries? Yes. Do we spy against domestic individuals? No, we do not. We work very closely with the FBI. And when the Russians were trying to interfere in that election and to change the outcome of it in their favor, we, CIA and FBI, worked very collaboratively so that we could have that ability to see what the Russians were doing and who they were working with. So when William Barr said spying, it clearly indicated that there was something that was inappropriate, if not illegal. Nobody used the term spying when they're referring to legitimate, predicated, authorized investigative actions on the part of the FBI.
He's lying. But of course, fake news, conspiracy TV wouldn't ask him the question. Brennan they spied on the Trump campaign. They spied on Carter Page. They spied on Papadopoulos. They spied on Sam Clovis. They were spying all over the place, weaponizing the powerful tools of intelligence. By the way, didn't Brennan seem awfully defensive for someone who has done nothing wrong? Now, one former federal prosecutor is now openly wondering why Brennan is so worried about the ongoing investigation into the origins of the Russian probe. Let's take a look.
If what Director Brennan is saying is true, then what's he worried about? But to hear them talk about like it's a fishing expedition after we just had a 2-year investigation of the administration under circumstances where the Justice Department didn't articulate a crime that it was actually looking at. We spent 2 years on a fishing expedition under the guise of collusion. They're now going to complain about oversight of the intelligence and the Justice Department and the FBI. That seems ridiculous to me.
Well, of course, Andy's right. Brennan, Comey, Clapper, Lynch, Strzok, Page, others, they have a lot of reasons to be worried tonight. The Trump campaign was spied on at the height of a presidential election at the direction of the highest-ranking bureaucrats, all who hated Donald Trump, some who rigged an investigation into his opponent and got her off the hook when she obviously committed crimes, including obstruction. Now, fraud against the FISA court was premeditated, and it was committed by these same officials. And after a 3-year witch hunt, a near 3-year witch hunt, was conducted into all things Trump because of Russian disinformation bought and paid for, ironically, by Hillary Clinton. Well, this wasn't just bad, it's criminal. All will be held accountable, but not if delusional Trump haters on the left get their way. They have this psychotic anti-Trump rage that is built inside them, inside the Democratic Party, and their number one fans, the media mob. It's now at an all-time high. They're destructive. Their vengeful hopes and dreams have totally fallen flat. They're floundering, all of them. The Mueller witch hunt came up empty. The Trump agenda is working and breaking records every single solitary day. Good news for the country. I guess that's bad news politically for those that dislike the president. The economy is booming and setting records. The president's approval numbers are reaching all-time highs. And in a sign of sheer desperation, Democrats on Capitol Hill are focusing nearly 100% of all their efforts on relitigating, reinvestigating the Mueller probe. 4 separate occasions. No collusion, no collusion, no collusion, none whatsoever. And in a letter to the House Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler, the White House counsel threw down the gauntlet, writing, quote, congressional investigations are intended to obtain information to aid in evaluating potential legislation, not to harass political opponents or to pursue an unauthorized do-over of exhaustive law enforcement investigations conducted by the Department of Justice. And I'll add the FBI, and I'll add the House Intel Committee, and I'll add the bipartisan Senate Committee. Nadler is requesting a wide range of documents related to Mueller's investigation after voting to hold the Attorney General Barr in contempt. Why? Because the Attorney General refused to break federal law. He refused to reveal grand jury information in the special counsel's report, because if the Attorney General did, these genius lawmakers, what they asked him to do, he would be in trouble legally. And meanwhile, Congressman, the cowardly Schiff himself is busy obsessing about phantom claims still of obstruction. He's never mentioned Hillary and subpoenaed emails and BleachBit and hammers. I wonder why. He's the chairman of the House Intel Committee. They're supposed to help keep our country safe from threats abroad, but yet he wants a fifth investigation into a non-existent crime not committed by anybody like the President of the United States. It's not just Schiff, and it's not just Nadler, who are totally preoccupied, by the way, with these conspiracy theories. Other Democrats, they're busy wasting your tax money with an upcoming, they're going to do a 12-hour-long dramatic reading of the full 448-page Mueller report. Can't wait to see the C-SPAN ratings for this extravaganza. It is a sad state of affairs inside the Democratic Party, and it might even be worse among their pals in the deep state and in the media mob.